folks. A lot of Americans are talking about moving to Canada. If Trump gets in power, if Trump becomes a president, they're gone. They're going up north. And I call BS on that. I don't see it happening. But on the off chance some of them are being honest, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our fair land so you can figure it out, okay? Let's start here where my elbow is, okay? All of this stuff here, this is the East Coast. I have nothing to tell you about the East Coast. No one's ever really been around there. That's founded by Scots, Nova Scotia, right? New Scotland. And they used to have cod as a big thing to fish. But the cod disappeared. We don't know if the environmentalists were right or what happened there, but the whole East Coast here, the whole East Coast, no jobs, pretty rough. That's why the Trailer Park Boys is so funny. That goes on near Halifax there. Now, the other funny thing about the East Coast is the Underground Railroad ended there. So there's a little bit of racial tension there. In fact, they used to have a place called Africaville, right, where the Underground Railroad ended up. And that was not a real Underground Railroad, by the way. So yeah, a lot of fishing done. If you call, like say you're on welfare in Canada and you call them up, then you'll be talking to a Newfie. We used to make fun of them. If you're from Newfoundland, we make them Newfie jokes. And Stompin' Tom Connors is from there. It seems like a wonderful place, and it's probably worth checking out, but no one's ever been. And if you move there, I doubt you're ever going to be able to get a job or make any money. Maybe if you do remote stuff, like you're an internet guy, then maybe you could move there. I don't know. Seems like it might be a little chilly. That brings us to Quebec. Now, you see this whole red thing here? This is a French province. It's the only one in the whole place that's French, right? But they blew up a bunch of guys in the 70s, and they said, you better take us French seriously. So now everyone who works for the government or any kind of job like that, all here, if you're on a plane here, you got to speak French. Because these guys, the FLQ, blew up a bunch of people. Now, you're definitely not going to get a job there, so don't get your hopes up. Because not only do you have to speak French to be there, you have to speak French without an accent. So a French person could say, hey, bonjour, je parle anglais, watch this. I am the English, and I am working at the museum in Ottawa. You get a job. You're fine. You're working for the government right away because you're bilingual. You can speak the worst English on earth, but if you're a native French speaker, you're good. So all of this, you got to speak French. Great place to visit. Couldn't recommend enough Montreal in the spring. What happened there was King Louis, he decided that he had the Filles de Roi, and that was sassy broads. And he said, you know what? I'm done with these sassy broads. We're going to send them to Canada. So he sent them down to Canada. Then these sassy little prostitutes, and even just like someone who was too lippy, they started mingling with the natives. And there's a lot of soldiers in Quebec. Jesus, I don't know how far back to go here. We sent the missionaries down to Quebec, right, to try to tell the Indians how great Catholicism is. Didn't go great. They got the Jesuits got their fingernails pulled out. So then we sent soldiers. That went a lot better because they killed everyone. But the soldiers needed dates. That's when the Filles de Roi come in, the women of the king, and then they start all mixing with the Indians, and you make a special breed of chick that's like a sassy French brought in an Indian. So they got the eyes like this, and then the big lips. Oh my God, I'm telling you. Just going chick watching in Quebec is one of the best things you can ever do. But you're not going to live there, all right? So just to recap here, we got the East Coast. No one's ever been. It's crazy there. There'll be storms. I heard of a guy there. He had a shark on his street. A shark washed up on his street during a storm. Anyway, and then Quebec, that's all French, which brings us down to Ontario. Now, Ontario, you got Ottawa there, right? That's a government town. And as I said before, you got to be bilingual. So you really only got Toronto. Right there. That's like the New York of Canada. So out of all this, and by the way, totally ignore the North. The North is all French people and Indians. And when I say Indian, I obviously mean feather, not dot. They don't like each other, and they're up here in a place called hell. Really sucks in the north. They got bugs, and the spring is about an hour and a half. The summer will roast you alive. So you really only want to do down by the coast. And then Montreal is beautiful, beautiful town. You're not going to get a job there. You're going to get your job in Toronto. So to be clear, when people talking about moving to Canada, they're really talking about Toronto and then maybe Vancouver. They're not talking about any of this. And this is the problem with immigration in general. They always say, it's a big land. They can take tons of people. They can go up here and Ukta-Yuktuk and in the Northwest Territories and Yukon and all this stuff. You know how much of this land is livable up here? None of it. That's why they call it none of it. And over here, we got Alberta. Calgary used to have something going on there. It was like the Zurich of Canada. But the oil companies flooded the market, and now oil's too cheap. They did that to fight fracking, but they screwed Calgary, turned Calgary into Detroit. So these middle places, you're not going to end up staying in. And by the way, when you talk about places like Winnipeg, oh my God, you want to talk about cold? It's so cold over here that when you meet someone from, say, Winnipeg, you just go like this. It's like seeing a war vet. You just give them respect. Now, Vancouver is just like Toronto in that it's perfect for you. You're probably going to end up moving there. We're down to 2 cities, by the way. But in Vancouver, you got some rough parts. You got a lot of junkies. And I think in Gastown, you have a junkie die a day. That ain't good for morale. It gets a little depressing to see these guys lying next to a cup of blood. I saw that once in Vancouver. I saw a bum lying down, and there's just a cup of blood next to him. What happened there, guy? Nosebleed? I don't know. And Vancouver's also on the West Coast. You got that West Coast problem. There's a lot of people sitting on their ass all day, smoking pot, watching TV. It's not exactly a hub. It's not exactly Hong Kong. But it's a pretty cool place to live, and if you got some money, you should probably do that. So we got Vancouver and Toronto, the only 2 cities you're thinking of living in, and you got to get sponsored. Okay, you need a business to make sure you're going to go there. In other words, you're not going to move to Canada, so stop your lying.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.